The city's twilight hours cloaked its daily turmoil in a veil of obscurity, shadows melding with the fading light to create a scene of urban solitude. John Sterling, a man whose life was dictated by meticulous schedules and clear objectives, found himself idly waiting in his sleek black limousine. Traffic was unusually dense, a slow-moving snake of red taillights stretching toward the airport, where he was due to board an international flight. His watchful eyes, ever alert for deviations from his plan, drifted away from the congested road ahead. Near a flickering street lamp, a figure emerged from the darkness. A woman, holding tightly to a baby wrapped in a thin blanket, stood under the scant protection of the dim light. Her posture, bent against the chill of the rain that had begun to fall more heavily, spoke volumes of her desperation. John's heart, typically shielded by a facade of indifference necessitated by his business dealings, felt an unexpected stir of empathy. Compelled by a sudden concern that was foreign to his usual demeanor, he continued to observe her. The rain, now a torrential downpour, seemed to isolate her further, creating a curtain that separated her from the rest of the bustling city. It was then that a more ominous silhouette joined the scene. A man, his intentions unclear, but his approach undeniably aggressive, moved toward the woman. The streetlight cast long shadows that danced around him, making his movements seem both swift and threatening. John's instinctive alarm bells rang. Without a moment's hesitation, he pushed open the door of his limousine and stepped out into the rain. His expensive suit, perfectly tailored, was instantly soaked, the raindrops drumming a relentless rhythm against the city's surfaces. Each step he took was quick and resolute, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a surge of adrenaline that sharpened his senses. As he neared, he could see the woman's eyes, wide with fear, darting from the approaching man to the unexpected figure of John, her potential rescuer. The baby, oblivious to the tension in the air, remained quiet, perhaps lulled by the rhythm of the rain or exhausted by the cold. "Hey!" John called out, his voice firm and commanding, cutting through the noise of the rainfall. The assailant, taken aback by John's authoritative tone and imposing presence, paused momentarily, giving John enough time to close the distance. "What do you think you're doing?" John demanded, his stature imposing as he positioned himself between the woman and the man. The would-be attacker, now clearly identifying John not just as an interruption but as a threat to his intentions, weighed his options, visibly faltering under John's intense gaze. The woman, clutching her baby closer, took a step back, her breath visible in the cold night air. She seemed ready to flee at a moment's notice, her body tensed for whatever might come next. With a dismissive snarl, the assailant turned and disappeared back into the shadowy depths of the street, leaving the echo of his footsteps as the only sign of his presence. John turned to the woman, his expression softening as he assessed her frightful state. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice now a gentle contrast to the commanding shout he had used moments ago. The woman, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and residual fear, nodded silently, her grip on her child never wavering. As the rain continued to pour, forming rivulets that streamed down the street, carrying away the remnants of the confrontation, John knew that he couldn't leave her in this vulnerable state. Whatever his plans had been, they were now secondary to the urgent human drama unfolding before him. This decision, made under the cold glow of a street lamp and the relentless fall of rain, was the first ripple in what would become a series of waves altering the course of his life. The rain-soaked streets of the city played host to an unexpected act of valor as John Sterling approached the distressed woman, who was frantically trying to protect her infant from the looming threat of her assailant. As John drew nearer, the stark fear visible in the woman's eyes tugged at his instincts. Her hands were clenched tightly around her child, forming a protective barrier against the harsh world around her. Her shoulders were hunched, braced for an impact that she had anticipated but hoped to avoid. John's presence, however, shifted the atmosphere. His tall frame and confident stride exuded a sense of authority that was hard to ignore. With a determined look, he positioned himself between the woman and her aggressor, his gaze steady and unyielding. The assailant, taken aback by John's sudden intervention, paused, his own resolve faltering under the weight of John's assertive demeanor. "Enough," John said, his voice low but resonant in the damp air, carrying with it an implicit threat of consequence should the harassment continue. The assailant, sensing the seriousness of the situation and perhaps recognizing the potential for greater trouble, scoffed dismissively but ultimately retreated, disappearing into the anonymity provided by the city's night. Turning his attention back to the woman, John observed her closely. Her breath was ragged, a testament to the adrenaline that likely coursed through her veins, and her eyes were still wide with residual fear. She clutched her baby closer, a silent prayer that the ordeal was truly over. "Let's get you somewhere safe," John suggested gently, his tone a stark contrast to the commanding voice he had used moments ago. Despite his reassurance, the woman's initial reaction was one of hesitation. Her trust in strangers had perhaps been eroded by too many hardships, her gaze still darting to the shadows around them as if expecting her assailant to re-emerge at any moment. After a brief, tense silence, she gave a slight nod, her acceptance hesitant but driven by the immediate need for safety. John led her back to his limousine, holding the door open as she carefully stepped inside, her movements guarded and slow, always mindful of the infant in her arms. Once they were both safely ensconced in the plush interior of the limousine, the contrast between the chaos of the outside world and the calm inside the vehicle was palpable. John instructed his driver to head towards the hotel where he was staying, his thoughts already racing ahead to the next steps. He knew that this was more than a mere act of chivalry. Something about the woman's plight had struck a deeper chord within him. As the limousine pulled away from the curb, blending back into the flow of the city's nocturnal rhythm, John turned his attention fully to his unexpected companion. "You're safe now," he reassured her, his voice a soothing balm in the dimly lit comfort of the car. "We're going to my hotel. It's secure, and you'll be able to rest there." The woman, her face illuminated by the passing streetlights that flickered through the rain-streaked windows, looked at John with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. Her lips parted as if to speak, to ask why this stranger had chosen to help her, but no words came. Instead, she simply nodded, her embrace around her child tightening ever so slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the sanctuary he was offering. As the vehicle made its way through the labyrinthine streets towards the hotel, the rain continued to fall, a steady soundtrack to the myriad thoughts that filled John's mind. He knew that once they arrived, he would have to figure out what could be done for her next. But for now, he focused on the immediate task at hand, ensuring her safety and comfort in a world that had shown her little kindness. This decision to intervene, made on a rain-drenched street corner, was about to take them both into uncharted territory, the ramifications of which were as yet unknown. Upon their arrival at the Grand Hotel, an oasis of calm in the bustling city, John ushered Mia through the ornate lobby, the plush carpets muting their footsteps. The opulent surroundings were a stark contrast to the harsh reality from which they had just escaped. John could feel the curious eyes of other guests on them, their presence an unusual disruption to the typically serene atmosphere of the upscale establishment. He approached the reception desk, his demeanor one of authority mixed with an urgency that was not typical for regular check-ins. With a discreet conversation and the exchange of his premium credit card, he secured a room for Mia, ensuring it was both comfortable and secluded. Privacy and safety were his paramount concerns. He handed Mia a key card, along with an envelope containing a generous amount of cash, enough to cover her immediate needs without the necessity of venturing out into the city. Mia, still cradling her baby close, accepted the key and envelope with a hesitant gratitude. Her eyes, shadowed with fatigue and the remnants of fear, briefly met John's. There was a depth of thankfulness there, mingled with the overwhelming weight of her current plight. John offered a reassuring nod, implying that no further thanks were needed. His actions were dictated by a newfound resolve to protect this stranger, who had inadvertently become his responsibility. After ensuring that Mia was settled, John left her in the sanctity of her new temporary haven, the soft click of the door signaling the physical and symbolic closing of one chapter and the opening of another. He walked back through the lobby, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The reality of what he had just committed to began to sink in. He He had missed his crucial international flight, a direct result of his decision to help Mia. Initially, it had seemed a minor inconvenience, a simple matter of rescheduling. But as he returned to his own lavish suite, the full impact of his actions started to dawn on him. The next morning brought clarity and a rush of unexpected consequences. John awoke to the piercing ring of his hotel room phone. It was the front desk, informing him in hushed tones that officers from the local police department were in the lobby asking for him by name. His heart sank. The law had a way of catching up with situations like Mia's, but he hadn't anticipated it happening so swiftly. Dressing quickly, he descended to the lobby, his mind racing with possible explanations and outcomes. As he met with the officers, their stern faces and the badge flashes did little to ease his anxiety. They explained that Mia was suspected of a serious crime, the theft of a substantial sum of money. John listened, his confusion mounting with every word. The woman he had saved from physical harm was now being framed as a criminal, a stark juxtaposition to the fragile, victimized figure he had encountered in the rain. The police were polite but firm, their questions pointed and their notepads filling with John's responses. He provided them with all the information he had, his lawyer's card firmly in hand, preparing for whatever legal entanglements lay ahead. They asked to speak with Mia, to hear her side of the story, a request John couldn't refuse without causing further suspicion. As the officers ascended to Mia's room, John's thoughts were tumultuous. Had he been too hasty in his judgment? Was there more to Mia's story than met the eye? These questions haunted him as he waited in the lobby, the grandeur of the hotel offering no comfort against the brewing storm of legal and moral complexity that now enveloped him. This act of kindness, intended as a simple humanitarian gesture, had escalated into a scenario fraught with legal implications and moral dilemmas, leading John into uncharted waters. The first light of dawn had barely touched the horizon when the sharp ring of the doorbell echoed through John's sprawling mansion. Groggily, he rose from his bed, the events of the previous night still casting a surreal haze over his thoughts. As he descended the grand staircase to the foyer, his mind was far from prepared for the confrontation that awaited him. Standing at his ornate front door were two police officers, their expressions somber and official. The stark contrast between the peaceful morning and the urgency in their demeanor immediately set John on edge. He opened the door, his heart rate accelerating as the chill morning air brushed against his skin, carrying with it an ominous sense of foreboding. "Mr. Sterling, we need to speak with you regarding a serious matter," one of the officers announced without preamble. They informed him that Mia, the woman he had gone to such lengths to protect, was now a suspect in a high-profile theft case. The details they provided painted a picture starkly different from the vulnerable mother John had encountered. According to their report, Mia was believed to have stolen a significant sum of money, and her sudden disappearance from the hotel only added to their suspicions. John, still clad in his nightwear, stood bewildered in the doorway. The gentle, frightened woman he had rescued, now a fugitive? The scenario seemed implausible, a stark contradiction to the person he thought he understood. His initial shock morphing into concern, he invited the officers inside, hoping to glean more information and perhaps clarify the misunderstanding. As they settled into the plush living room, John's mind raced. He contacted his lawyer, speaking in hushed, urgent tones over the phone. The reality of the situation began to set in, and the serene luxury of his home felt more like a gilded cage. The conversation with his lawyer provided little comfort. The legal complexities of harboring someone accused of a crime were daunting. Meanwhile, Mia's whereabouts remained a mystery, her sudden disappearance adding layers of complexity to an already convoluted situation. John's instincts screamed that there was more to the story than what the police had pieced together. Perhaps Mia was indeed in danger, or worse, had been manipulated into a situation she did not fully understand herself. Determined to uncover the truth, John resolved to take matters into his own hands. He could not shake the image of Mia's terrified eyes as they had met his in the dimly lit hotel room, the silent plea for help that now seemed to echo even louder in his memory. The thought of her out there, alone and possibly frightened, spurred him into action. The police, having noted John's cooperation, but also his clear distress, left with a promise to keep him informed. They advised him to remain available for further questioning, their departure leaving a heavy silence in their wake. Alone now, John paced the length of his living room, his thoughts a tumultuous swirl of doubt and determination. He needed to find Mia, not only to help clear her name, but also to protect her and her child from whatever web of deceit they had become entangled in. His decision was firm. He would deploy his resources, both personal and professional, to track her down and bring clarity to the murky waters of suspicion and fear. As he set about making plans, calling on contacts who could aid in the search, the narrative was poised to delve deeper into the mystery, unraveling the threads of truth hidden beneath layers of deception and misunderstanding. In the quiet of his expansive study, surrounded by books that spoke of history's mysteries and solutions, John initiated his quest for the truth. He sat behind his mahogany desk, its surface a testament to his usually organized life, now strewn with papers related to Mia's case. The morning's revelations had left him disconcerted, but resolute. He would not let the situation rest until he had uncovered the full story. His first move was to enlist the expertise of a renowned private investigator, known for his meticulous methods and an unyielding drive to reveal the obscured. Later that day, the investigator, a man named Thomas Archer, arrived at John's mansion. He was a figure straight out of a noir novel, sharp-eyed, weather-beaten, and carrying an air of quiet confidence. John briefed him on everything he knew: Mia's encounter, the accusation of theft, her sudden disappearance, and the lingering suspicions that what was being presented was not the entire truth. Thomas listened intently, his eyes narrowing as he processed the information. Without wasting any time, he laid out his plan. He would start by retracing Mia's steps from the night of the incident, speaking to any potential witnesses at the hotel, and examining the hotel's security footage. He would delve into Mia's past, looking for any connections or patterns that might explain her current predicament. As the investigation unfolded over the following days, Thomas uncovered a tangle of deceit that extended far beyond a simple case of theft. His inquiries brought to light a series of confrontations between Mia and her ex-husband, and more ominously, her former mother-in-law. It seemed that the theft charge was merely a facade, a sinister cover for a more personal vendetta. Thomas discovered that Mia's former mother-in-law, a woman with considerable influence and a bitter disposition, had never approved of Mia. Her disdain had turned to outright hostility when Mia had left her son. The investigator pieced together a timeline that suggested the theft accusation was a calculated move to discredit Mia, making her appear unfit as a mother, and thus swinging custody of the child in favor of her ex-husband. This revelation came as both a shock and a confirmation to John. The depth of manipulation involved pointed to a disturbing level of malice. Thomas detailed his findings in a comprehensive report, laying out the evidence of the mother-in-law's involvement in fabricating the criminal charges against Mia. Armed with this new information, John felt a mix of anger and vindication. He now knew that Mia had been the victim of a cruel strategy designed to tear her life apart. The stakes were higher than he had imagined, and it was clear that the battle to clear Mia's name would be fraught with challenges. As John absorbed the implications of the investigator's discoveries, his resolve hardened. He was determined to help Mia not just to reclaim her reputation, but also to protect her from further harm. The thought of her being manipulated and cornered by her own family ignited a fierce protectiveness in him. With the investigative report in hand and the truth beginning to crystallize, John prepared to take the next steps. His mission was no longer just about aiding a stranger in need. It had become a personal crusade against injustice. As the chapter closed with John pondering his strategy, the narrative was set to transition into a proactive confrontation with the forces arrayed against Mia, signaling a shift from defensive maneuvers to a more direct challenge. Several weeks had passed since John had set the wheels of investigation in motion. The city continued its bustling pace, seemingly indifferent to the personal dramas unfolding within its confines. John, however, was a man changed, his thoughts perpetually clouded with concern for Mia and her child, their fates an unresolved chapter that weighed heavily on his mind. It was on an overcast afternoon, the sky a tapestry of gray, that fate steered John down a street he seldom frequented. His steps were aimless, a rare break in his usually structured days, driven by a need to clear his mind. As he passed a row of quaint downtown cafes, a figure in one of the windows caught his eye. It was Mia, unmistakable even from a distance, her face framed by the cafe's modest decor, her expression one of quiet resignation as she cradled her child. John's heart quickened as he pushed open the cafe door, the familiar bell chiming softly overhead. Mia looked up, her surprise evident as their eyes met. For a moment there was a palpable silence, a mix of relief and apprehension filling the space between them. John approached her table cautiously, his demeanor gentle, aware of the tumultuous weeks she had endured. "Mia," John began, his voice low and steady, "I've learned a great deal since we last met." He proceeded to outline the findings of the investigation, watching as Mia's expression shifted from surprise to dawning realization. Thomas Archer had unearthed a web of deceit woven by her ex-husband and mother-in-law, a plot so meticulously crafted that it had nearly destroyed her. As the gravity of the situation settled around them, a torrent of emotions broke through Mia's composed exterior. Tears welled up in her eyes as she listened, each piece of revealed truth resonating with painful clarity. The public space around them faded into the background, their table becoming a secluded island amidst the cafe's gentle hum. With John's gentle prompting, Mia began to share her story. Her voice trembled as she recounted the years of manipulation and control, the escalating abuse that had prompted her to flee. "It was never just about me," she whispered, clutching her child closer. "It was about keeping my baby safe from a life of fear." Her husband and his mother had made it clear that they would stop at nothing to control her and her child's destiny. John listened, his expression one of deep sympathy mixed with a growing resolve. The pieces of the puzzle were fitting together, each revelation adding to the portrait of a woman who had been grievously wronged. Mia's resilience in the face of such adversity struck a chord within him, reinforcing his commitment to her cause. As their conversation drew to a close, the weight of shared secrets seemed to forge a new bond between them. Mia's relief at being understood, at having her story validated, was palpable. John reassured her once more, his promise to stand by her side not just words but a solemn vow. Determined to see justice served, John helped Mia to her feet, their next steps clear. Together, they would face the legal battles ahead, armed with the truth and a newfound strength drawn from their shared resolve. As they left the cafe, the chapter ended with a sense of purpose, setting the stage for a determined fight for Mia's rights and her child's future. The narrative was poised to transition into a legal and emotional confrontation that would test their resilience and determination. As the autumn days gave way to the chill of winter, the battle for Mia's justice began in earnest. The corridors of the courthouse, with their echoes of cases past and present, became a regular haunt for John and Mia. Each hearing, each session, drew them deeper into a complex legal labyrinth that tested their resolve and patience. John, ever the strategist, had enlisted the help of one of the city's top attorneys, a woman known for her tenacity and unwavering commitment to justice. Her name was Elizabeth Doyle, and she quickly became Mia's staunchest advocate, navigating the legal system with a precision that only years of experience could afford. Elizabeth's presence in the courtroom was commanding, her arguments incisive, challenging the prosecution's narrative at every turn. The legal proceedings were exhaustive. Witness after witness was called, each testimony a piece of the intricate puzzle that was Mia's past. John watched from the gallery, his support unwavering as Mia faced the scrutiny of the court. He saw the strain on her face, the way she clutched her hands together to still their trembling as she listened to the recounting of events that had once threatened to destroy her. Mia, for her part, showed a resilience that was both heartbreaking and awe-inspiring. When it was her turn to take the stand, her voice was steady, her recount of the events clear and factual. She spoke of the years of manipulation, the veiled threats from her ex-husband, and the overt aggression of her former mother-in-law. Her testimony, while painful, shone a stark light on the calculated cruelty she had endured. The opposing counsel tried to depict Mia as an unreliable narrator, questioning her motives and attempting to poke holes in her story. However, Elizabeth's expert handling of the cross-examinations ensured that the truth remained untarnished. She presented evidence meticulously collected by Thomas Archer, corroborating Mia's account with hotel records, financial statements, and witness accounts that undermined the contrived charges against her. As the weeks turned into months, the season's change mirrored the shifting tides in the courtroom. The judge, a seasoned arbiter of justice, listened intently to the proceedings, his face often impassive yet thoughtful as he weighed the evidence presented. The pivotal moment came when a surprise witness, previously hesitant, came forward. Bolstered by Elizabeth's reassurance, the witness provided critical testimony that corroborated Mia's narrative of being framed, tipping the scales definitively in her favor. Finally, after what seemed like an interminable wait, the day of the verdict arrived. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation. John sat beside Mia, his hand a comforting weight on her shoulder. As the judge took his seat, silence descended, the kind of silence that feels heavy, laden with the weight of impending decisions. The judge's voice was clear and authoritative as he delivered the verdict. Mia was absolved of all charges, the evidence of her innocence undeniable. Furthermore, the judge granted her full custody of her child, citing the manipulative tactics employed against her as utterly reprehensible. Relief washed over Mia like a wave, tears streaming down her face unbidden. John, too, felt a profound sense of vindication, his belief in Mia's innocence affirmed by the court's decision. As they left the courthouse, the burden of the past months seemed to lift, the victory a palpable presence between them. As the winter thawed into the mild breezes of spring, the conclusion of Mia's legal battle marked a turning point, not just for her, but also for John. The cold, echoing halls of the courthouse had been replaced by the warm, sunlit spaces of daily life. Yet the transition was more than just a change of season. It was a profound transformation in the very fabric of John's existence. The ordeal had peeled back layers of his identity that he had never questioned. The solitary pursuits of wealth and success, the comfort of routine and predictability. In their stead, he found himself embracing a new role, one defined by connections and emotional investments that were both foreign and exhilarating. Mia and her young child had become integral parts of his life, their well-being as crucial to his happiness as his own. John's mansion, once a symbol of his success but also his isolation, began to echo with the sounds of a newfound family. Mia, with her gentle strength and resilience, brought a sense of peace and purpose that filled the sprawling rooms with warmth. Her child's laughter resonated through the corridors, turning the once staid atmosphere into one of joy and vitality. In this new chapter, John found himself taking on roles he had never anticipated. He was a mentor, a friend, and perhaps most surprisingly, a paternal figure to Mia's child. The mornings were filled with small joys, breakfasts together in the large, sun-drenched kitchen, walks in the lush gardens, and discussions about everything from the mundane to the profound. This period of adjustment was also a time of growth for Mia. Freed from the shadows of her past, she began to rediscover her own passions and ambitions. John supported her endeavors, encouraging her to pursue opportunities for education and work, which she embraced with the enthusiasm of someone who had been given a second chance at life. Together, they navigated the complexities of building a stable and nurturing environment for her child. John's relationships with friends and colleagues also began to change. He found himself more open, more willing to share and engage with others about his experiences. Dinners and social gatherings at his home, which had once been affairs characterized by formalities and business discussions, transformed into heartfelt engagements where laughter and sincere conversations were the norms. As spring gave way to the lush fullness of summer, John reflected on the transformation that had occurred. What had started as a simple decision to help a stranger in distress had blossomed into a commitment that reshaped his very being. The loneliness that had once seemed an inevitable companion now seemed a distant memory, replaced by a life rich with the complexities and joys of family. Each day, as he watched Mia and her child thrive in their new surroundings, John realized that the greatest wealth he had accumulated was not measured in financial terms, but in the bonds he had forged and the lives he had touched. The vibrant tapestry of the new life that John and Mia wove together was colored with a depth of connection that neither had anticipated. As the seasons cycled from the lush fullness of summer to the golden hues of autumn, their relationship, rooted in the trials they had overcome, blossomed into a profound partnership. With each passing day, John found himself more deeply entwined in the lives of Mia and her child. The once stark lines of his existence, defined by board meetings and business deals, softened into the gentle rhythms of family life. Laughter filled the breakfast table, where financial newspapers had once lain unaccompanied, and evenings were spent not in solitude, but in the joyful chaos of shared meals and storytelling. The decision to marry seemed not just a natural progression of their relationship, but a celebration of all they had endured and overcome together. It was a crisp, clear day when John proposed to Mia, in the very gardens of his estate that had witnessed their growth as a couple. With the gentle rustle of autumn leaves as their backdrop, John, with a simplicity that mirrored the clarity of his conviction, asked Mia to join her life with his. Her acceptance was accompanied by tears of joy, a moment of unguarded emotion that symbolized the healing of her past wounds. Their wedding was a reflection of their journey, a blend of elegance and earnestness. It was held at John's estate, which had transformed under Mia's influence from a monument of his solitude into a home vibrant with warmth. The ceremony was intimate, attended by close friends and family who had supported them through their respective journeys. Mia's child, now happily calling John Dad, played a joyful part, symbolizing the new family unit they had become. John, who had once believed his greatest achievements were his financial successes, found a deeper, more enduring satisfaction in the small, everyday moments with Mia and her child. He reveled in the morning walks through the dew-soaked grass, the spontaneous dances in the living room, and the quiet evenings watching the sunset paint the sky from the porch. The transformation was not just in his personal life, but echoed in his professional demeanor as well. Colleagues noticed a more thoughtful, grounded John, one who made decisions not just for profit, but for the well-being of his employees and the community. His philanthropic efforts increased, driven by a desire to give back that was inspired by his own experiences of love and redemption. As the leaves turned and the air grew colder, signaling the approach of winter, John and Mia's life together settled into a comforting routine, marked by mutual respect and a shared vision for the future. Their home became a beacon of stability and happiness, a safe harbor not just for them and Mia's child, but for all who needed warmth and welcome. As the year drew to a close, the world outside John's estate was blanketed in a quiet hush of snow, reflecting the tranquil yet profound contemplation that occupied John's mind. Seated by the large window in his study, a room once reserved for solitary business decisions, John gazed out at the gentle snowfall that adorned the landscape with a pristine serenity. It was in moments like these, as the old year's memories intertwined with the anticipation of the new, that John found himself deep in reflection. The journey from the life he once knew, a life measured in ledger books and stock portfolios, to the vibrant, chaotic beauty of family life was nothing short of miraculous. The stark contrast between his past and present was never more apparent than in these quiet moments of solitude, which were no longer lonely but filled with the warmth of inner peace. John remembered vividly the night that had set all these changes in motion. A rainy evening, the pavement glistening under the street lamps, and a chance encounter that could have been just another moment passing unnoticed. Yet that night, driven by a compulsion he barely understood at the time, he had stepped out of his comfort zone and into the storm to help Mia and her child. That decision, made in a heartbeat, had rerouted the course of his life in ways he could never have imagined. Now, surrounded by the tangible results of that choice, pictures of Mia and her child, drawings pinned to the fridge, toys scattered across the living room floor, John felt a deep, abiding joy. Each memento around the house, each small artifact of their daily lives, was a testament to the life they had built together. He thought about the mornings filled with laughter at the breakfast table, the afternoons spent in the garden, and the evenings wrapped up in the cozy togetherness of family movie nights. As he reflected, John realized that his transformation was not just in his personal life but in his worldview. Where he once saw success as a series of achievements and acquisitions, he now saw it in the resilience and smiles of Mia and her child. His priorities had shifted dramatically, with empathy and compassion taking precedence over profits and power. His business strategies had evolved accordingly, now driven by a commitment to ethical practices and community support, reflecting his new values. These reflections were not just retrospective, but served as a guide for his future actions. John knew that the journey was far from over. The lessons learned from his experiences with Mia and her child had opened his eyes to the broader issues of justice and welfare that many others faced. He was more determined than ever to leverage his resources and influence to make a difference, inspired by the very personal change he had undergone. As he turned away from the window, the last light of the day fading into the evening, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. The chaos of family life, once a foreign concept, was now the melody to which he set his life's rhythm. He was eager to see what the future held, not just for him and his family, but for the community and the wider world he felt increasingly connected to. With a heart full of gratitude and eyes open to the myriad possibilities, John prepared to step into the new year, embracing the challenges and joys it would undoubtedly bring. As winter melted into the soft beginnings of spring, the Sterling household was alive with the exuberant chaos that only a family can generate. John, whose life had once been a tapestry of scheduled meetings and meticulously planned business trips, now found his days delightfully unpredictable, colored by the vibrant energies of Mia and her young child. The transition from a man of strict routines to a father figure playing tea parties on the living room floor was not without its challenges. Yet, John embraced each of these with a smile. His mornings might now begin with the creative task of constructing elaborate pillow forts instead of checking the stock market. His hands, once used to steering business deals, were now more often seen holding tiny teacups, carefully pouring pretend tea for stuffed animal guests, meticulously arranged around a child-sized table. These tea parties, complete with conversations about the adventures of teddy bears and dolls, were a stark contrast to the boardroom meetings John was accustomed to. Yet, the genuine laughter that filled the room during these playful gatherings was more rewarding than any business deal he had brokered. Spontaneity had found its way into John's life through impromptu picnics in the sprawling backyard of their home. On a whim, they would throw together a picnic basket with sandwiches and juice, and a blanket thrown over the lush green grass became their banquet hall. These moments, unplanned and unstructured, brought unexpected joys that John had never known in his previous life of solitude. Watching Mia and her child dance around the garden, chasing butterflies or marveling at the birds, John felt a profound connection to the simple, beautiful moments of life. The challenges of adapting to family life were manifold. The once orderly house now often sported a scatter of toys and books, and quiet evenings might be interrupted by the sudden outburst of a child not wanting to go to bed. Yet every challenge was met with Mia's loving guidance and John's growing patience, forging a family bond that was strong and resilient. In these everyday adventures, John discovered facets of himself he hadn't known existed. He learned patience in teaching a child to tie shoelaces, found humor in the midst of spilled milk, and felt immense pride in successful bedtime stories that ended with a child's peaceful sleep. Each day brought new lessons in love and caring, profoundly changing how John viewed success and happiness. As the days grew longer and the promise of summer whispered through blooming flowers and buzzing bees, John reflected on the beautiful disorder of his new life. The once imposing silence of his large home was now filled with the sounds of laughter, cries, and the pitter-patter of little feet, a symphony he had come to cherish. Filled with its joyful chaos, was drawing to a close, setting the stage for deeper explorations of family bonding and community interaction. As John looked forward to more days filled with love and laughter, he prepared for the community engagement initiatives he and Mia had planned, eager to extend the warmth of their home into the broader community. This anticipation of shared activities and mutual growth marked the next chapter in their lives, promising continued adventures and collective happiness. As the warmth of early summer spread across the city, John and Mia's focus shifted outward, extending beyond the boundaries of their home to the wider community. Their own experiences had deeply ingrained the value of compassion and support, and they were keen to give back in meaningful ways. It was from this desire that the idea of a foundation took root, a concrete expression of their commitment to helping others who were facing adversities similar to those Mia had once endured. The conception of the foundation began in their home office, a room that had once been a place for John to manage his investments, now repurposed into a brainstorming hub for charitable activities. Maps of the local area were spread out on the desk, dotted with markers indicating neighborhoods where the need was greatest. They spent evenings discussing potential programs and services, each suggestion a reflection of the hurdles Mia had overcome. Mia was particularly passionate about aiding single mothers in crisis. She knew firsthand the struggles of balancing the needs of a child with the challenges of daily survival under adverse circumstances. Therefore, the Foundation's first major initiative was to establish a network of resources and support for single mothers. This included access to temporary housing, job training programs, educational scholarships, and legal assistance, elements critical to providing a pathway out of hardship. John, with his business acumen, took on the task of structuring the foundation to ensure sustainability and impact. He reached out to his network of contacts to gather support, both in expertise and funding. His persuasive presentations to local businesses and philanthropists garnered a wave of initial support, vital for the foundation's launch. The community's response was overwhelmingly positive. Stories of struggle were met with offers of help, and the foundation quickly became a beacon of hope. John and Mia organized community forums, inviting residents to share their stories and needs, ensuring that the foundation's efforts were accurately targeted to make a real difference. One particularly touching event was a community picnic organized by the foundation, held in a local park. It was a day filled with laughter and shared stories, where local families could come together and feel supported. Activities for children were juxtaposed with workshops for parents, creating a family-friendly atmosphere of learning and enjoyment. The foundation also set up an emergency hotline, staffed by trained volunteers, providing immediate assistance and guidance to single mothers in crisis. Mia often shared her story at training sessions, inspiring volunteers with her resilience and dedication to the cause. As the foundation grew, so did John and Mia's vision for their role in the community. They were no longer just benefactors. They were active participants in a network of mutual support and empowerment. The gratitude they received from those they helped only deepened their commitment and broadened their understanding of the impact one family could have on many lives. As summer progressed into fall and the foundation's activities expanded, John and Mia planned the next phase of their outreach, establishing a community center that would serve as a permanent hub for their activities and provide a safe space for growth and learning. As the wheel of time turned, bringing with it the dance of seasons from spring blossoms to winter frosts, John and Mia's life together wove a rich tapestry of growth, challenges, and victories. With each passing year, their family not only grew in number, but also in spirit. The birth of their second child, a girl who inherited her mother's bright eyes and her father's thoughtful demeanor, marked another chapter of joy and renewal in their shared journey. Their home, once a symbol of John's solitary achievements, had transformed into a vibrant hub of family life, laughter, and continuous learning. Walls that once echoed with the solitary click of a keyboard now resounded with the lively debates of homework projects and the spontaneous concerts of a makeshift family band. Each room told stories of a family knit tightly by the threads of unconditional love and mutual respect. John's perspective on legacy had undergone a profound transformation. Where once the gleam of awards and the weight of financial statements charted his course, now it was the quiet moments of teaching his son to ride a bike or watching his daughter play her first piano recital that filled his heart with pride. These personal milestones, though seemingly small, were the real markers of his life's worth. Mia, too, found great fulfillment in her role not just as a mother and John's partner, but also as a mentor and leader within their community. The foundation they had started years ago had flourished, growing into a vital part of the local landscape, offering support and hope to countless single mothers and their children. Mia's own experiences, tempered by time and reflection, became lessons she shared with compassion and wisdom, inspiring others to believe in the possibility of a new beginning. Together, John and Mia expanded their philanthropic efforts, reaching beyond their initial focus to address broader social issues affecting their community. Education, mental health, and sustainable employment became pillars of their initiatives, driven by their belief in empowering individuals not just to survive, but to thrive. As their children grew, so did their understanding of the world around them, shaped by the values of empathy, resilience, and respect that John and Mia nurtured. Family dinners often revolved around discussions of current events, personal responsibilities to society, and plans for future projects that the family could tackle together. Reflecting on the journey that had led him to this point, John often found himself overwhelmed with gratitude. That rainy night, which now seemed both a lifetime ago and just yesterday, had set him on a path so drastically different from anything he had planned. It was a path that had led him not only to personal salvation, but had allowed him to touch the lives of others in profound and lasting ways. As John and Mia watched their children play in the yard, their laughter mingling with the late afternoon breeze, they knew that the true measure of their lives lay in these moments and in the legacy of love and service they would leave behind. Their story, a testament to the transformative power of compassion and second chances, continued to unfold, each day adding a new layer to their enduring commitment to each other and to the world around them, rich with the accomplishments of the past and the promise of the future, leaving a legacy of love that would undoubtedly ripple through generations, forever altering the path not just of their own family, but of all those touched by their journey of love, justice, and redemption.